Wonderful. Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good. You're all woken up already. Not like 8:30 this morning. All right. I'm very excited. I'm Saikat Chaudhuri. I'm super excited to be here as the moderator of this panel and really talk about these exciting themes that we have. We've got Ajay Bahl, who's the Chief Growth Officer and looks at the manufacturing industries very closely for HCLTech. We have Paul Baldassari, who's the President of Manufacturing and Services for Flex. And then we've got Alexandra Schwertner-Farley. You got married recently, so you have to tell us what you use now, who's responsible for AI and strategy at Rockwell Automation. So I'm very excited about this panel because, oftentimes when you think about it, people talk about the B2C markets, they talk about the consumer side of things all the time. And I tell people all the time that, it's kind of cute that an app will inform the hotel that I'm going to be late and all arrangements will be made. But the $1 trillion opportunity happens not there. It happens if we can do things like make manufacturing more efficient, if we can actually do much better prediction of demand and as a result of inventory management, if we can move goods around the world in a much more efficient fashion. That is the $1 trillion opportunity, not just the cute things which inform us on our apps what we need to do. And I'd love to explore these themes with our colleagues here today. The pandemic, for its ills, it also exposed a lot of things, right? I mean, people complain that the pandemic caused all these supply chain problems. No, it exposed how weak our infrastructure was and how we were due to revolutionize everything that we need to do. And we need to take manufacturing, but also operations to a whole new level. And I'm really pleased that I have Ajay, Paul, and Ali to discuss these themes with me. We want to talk about in the next hour really the opportunities that come with it, but also some of the challenges, and then where to from here. That's really the objective. And I'll do a bit of moderated Q&A, and then subsequently we'll open it up to some of you. We're quite pleased to see so many of you here, so we want you to have a voice in the conversation here as well. So, Ajay, I'm going to start with you just because you kind of take an overarching view with your experience, right? And I want to ask you a very simple question. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for efficiency gains, for doing things differently, more reliably, better, as you look across the manufacturing sectors, with, of course, technology as an important tool?
And you call that a simple question?
Simple question.
So I'm pretty sure we can talk the entire day about this. But I think, Saikat, and I definitely want to learn from others' experiences as well. But as I see it, from a manufacturing perspective, there is innovation happening all around. And I think the first thing that's happening is the product itself is changing for everyone. Right? So if you manufacture a product, but the product definition of what the product does, what it actually brings from the ecosystem and what's supposed to deliver is changing. So the moment that is changing, how you design that product, how do you build that product, how do you manufacture that product, and how do you make it available, all of that is changing. And if I'm looking at it from Paul's shoes, for example, and if he's looking at how he's going to build his entire budgets and everything for the year, manufacturing industry is an asset-heavy industry. And we call it an asset-heavy industry because it's capital-intensive. And capital-intensive requires a longer planning period. And I think one of the biggest threats that we have is that with AI and everything coming in and product changing so fast, how do you even plan for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of investment? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have to look at that has to be addressed. And if we are able to do that, that's where the efficiencies are going to be coming from.
Really interesting. Can I interrupt you for a second? Can you give us an example of where products are changing like that in the manner that you're describing?
So, I think if you start from an auto industry, right? Auto industry used to be a set of wheels driving on a motor. Today, it's the largest computer on wheels that's basically moving around. So how you put together that manufacturing or that automobile is a very different set of tools, supply chain processes, etc., that are required to make this a success. The tier one ancillaries of yesterday are not the most important ancillaries of today. And that entire, therefore, what is required to make them successful, what is the impact of the supply chain when that happens? We all saw that, right? You talked about COVID. We saw that in 2022, car manufacturers, and may get the year wrong a little bit, started selling products that had lesser chips than what they had in 2019 and 2020. Yeah. And the reason was that, again, you come from the industry, Paul, you'll be able to talk much more about this. Yeah. The chips weren't simply available. Yeah. Right? So I think that's where the impact actually becomes extraordinary. And the product change is going to be extremely strategic to how we really look at the efficiencies in the manufacturing industry. Of course, there's a lot to be gained from AI itself. Yeah. And I was, I thought about it as a challenge. How long can we go about talking about this topic but not talk about AI? Yeah. But I think it's absolutely going to be relevant from what it can bring to the table, whether it is its supply chain itself, whether it is energy transition that feeds into the manufacturing industry, because manufacturing industries tend to be energy intensive. And really from that perspective, the impact it may have from a sustainability perspective. I know we are talking about AI today. Last year when we came here today everybody was talking about sustainability. That was the topic of the year. So, sustainability is not forgotten. It's still important. And how does that actually play into all of that is going to be critical. And I think AI has a big role to play in doing all that.
Excellent start. Lots of food for thought. We'll delve into it. Paul, from your point of view, you serve so many leading, cutting-edge sectors as well. Where are the biggest opportunities here?
So if you look at manufacturing, like in many things that we do, a lot what we do is actually visual, a function of something that we see, right? Visual recognition. We are all excited about large language models, and for sure that's a revolution in many areas. But on the shop floor, or even in our lives, think like how much of the day you read something or you speak versus how much of the day you actually watch something and you interact with your environment based on what you see, right? In automation, the end of arm technology is very much depending on that you see something and then you actually can grab it and move it or modify it. And we do this since more than 20 years. Right, a lot of the tasks that when you look at, for example, your phone, there are 2,000 components on your phone. Some of them are so small you can't even see it anymore without a magnifier. Imagine your workplace is to inspect if all of those components are on the phone, and you do this all day long. Right, that's crazy. So we worked early in the industry already to put as much as possible of what's, I would say, boring and repetitive and strenuous into the machine, and with that make the industry more efficient. And in the industry, we produce about 10% more every year with the same number of people. So we have to drive this efficiency. Now, how do we make sure that we get the people along that as well, right? How do we train our people? Because for sure, these automated systems and automated stations with artificial intelligence components to it are more complex to use as well, right? And that's where the responsibility of the industry comes in as well, to show the people the roadmap, where things are going, and to your point, make a plan of 5 to 10 years, although it's impossible to predict exactly where we're going to be, but predict roughly where we want to be, where we need to be, and where we all need to be in the industry from our capabilities perspective.
Really important points, and we'll delve into some of those, including the what to do with the people, both training and otherwise. It's really important. Ali, from your vantage point, Rockwell is everywhere. Automation is big. New technologies are coming. You deploy that, everything else. Where are your biggest opportunities here?
So Rockwell Automation, we're across all industries, which I'd say makes my job really fun, from automotive to consumer packaged goods to the steel industry, right? And we talk about AI and all this new technology, but at the end of the day, these manufacturing sites have all this existing installed base. And it's not practical to go in there and say, let's put in AI, rip and replace all that you have. So the more opportunity we have to really harness that existing infrastructure and maximize what they have, and really leverage AI as an enabling technology on top, I think that's most exciting. And one example is one thing we're doing with like variable frequency drives. The thing that's responsible for helping, for example, a conveyor, move. We're tapping into like predictive maintenance from using AI, but actually harnessing the motor current signal. So you don't just have to go and install a new sensor. You're just tapping into that existing electrical data as a new sensing variable.
Fascinating. And how much of an improvement do you expect by something like that?
that can vary, right, from use case to use case and what scale it could be. So it could be anything from 2% to something of maybe like a 30%, probably even higher, right? Just depends on what the circumstance is and the criticality.
This interests me because when all of you talked about this, right, what I heard in my mind, being the Silicon Valley guy, is like, this is all incremental to me. When I hear numbers like 2% and 10% and so forth, I'm like, well, if we innovated at that rate, we would have fancy landlines and we would have never gotten to smartphones. Of course, it's not true. But if you, forget, I understand there's installed bases and all these other things. What if you could really just dream up the future, okay? Like imagine all these technologies that we have at our disposal, working in the best way possible and deployed everywhere. What gains might you imagine? What would be the wildest thing you'd want to do? I'll start with you, Ali, and solve, which you can't do right now because of all these constraints.
So I would say we think about, like from the manufacturing life cycle, we think about it from the design, operate, control, maintain. So what I was really talking about was more that maintain bucket, because that for so many is very practical.
Yeah.
So if you're really thinking about, okay, let's design for the future. Well, it's going to be...
I want to dream.
We're going to dream. Okay, let's dream. So if I'm going to think about a net zero facility that's completely sustainable, using brand new materials, that my supply chain is localized, I'm working with vendors, and my machine builders are seamlessly integrating. I don't know what else add to our journey.
No, good. You can hand it off now, Paul. 10%, I wasn't too impressed, but it is impressive. Moore's Law and all that too, I'm like, well, come on, man. We need new materials now. Go ahead.
If you think about 10% every year, you do that over 20 years. Exactly.
I know. I agree with you. I know you're clever.
I just had that conversation with someone in a factory, right? They were talking about what if we do everything manual.
Yeah.
And that factory has 1,000 people. And when I did the math with them together, we would need 35,000 people if we would still do everything like we did it 20 years ago. So it's impossible. Yeah. So while it seems incremental over a long period of time, incremental is actually a very sexy number too.
I like that. Yes.
But the dream is we put everything that is boring, strenuous into the machine.
Yeah.
And we provide people and enable and empower people on the shop floor to actually make real-time decisions that drive a real business outcome. I don't want that we need to ask a technology provider or a central team to do something, right? That's part of the project in the beginning. But at the end, everybody should have the tools to make their job every day a little bit better. And all of that little bit together makes it very sexy.
I love that vision. I mean, both the sexy part and just in general, the little bit adding up. But also, it's a neat way to think about it. It's seamless, right? I mean, I think both of you have that theme. Ajay, from your point of view, you work with so many clients too, right? What's their dream? What's your dream for them?
So, I am absolutely, and I don't want to keep agreeing, but, I am in the bucket of actually things have to move one step at a time.
Yeah.
Autonomous vehicles came in many years back.
Yeah.
Right? By 2025, they were supposed to be on the road.
Yeah.
The technology exists. There are definitely capabilities in an autonomous vehicle that can drive around, and we've seen that many times over. But how many autonomous vehicles do you actually see on the ground right now? You see a few of them, but do you still see that by, in the next 3 years, all of the vehicles will only be autonomous? Probably not, because changing an installed base takes a lot of investment over a period of time.
Yeah.
So incrementalism from that perspective is what is practical.
Yeah.
The challenge that we have in incrementalism is the long capital lead time that we talked about, and how do you make it successful?
Yeah.
Competing against the products that we have not come in.
Yeah.
And I think collectively, the other challenge that we see is really that of forced obsolescence in consumer products.
Yeah.
So when we talked about product innovation, a lot of the companies actually design products that literally fail the previous product that they actually made.
Yes.
And in doing that, they're basically requiring the customers to buy more and more newer products faster and faster. And which actually, if you really look at it, actually adds to the overall cost while making the newer product a little more efficient, but really doesn't really produce that much in the overall scheme of things. The challenges that we definitely see is really more focused around trying to bring in efficiencies.
Yeah.
Adding sensorization to the existing plants, like you talked about, the existing base Rockwell's everywhere. I think from what I understand, 90% of all plants have Rockwell components in it. I don't want to be a salesperson for you, but
you're doing it. Yes,
so in every manufacturing plant, and if you can talk about ways in improving the product capability of what exists in a Rockwell set of machines, you're definitely going to benefit that from increased sensorization, increased capabilities. If you can insert AI into it, suddenly you'll definitely have better products, better and capabilities comes right through.
Yeah, so very important points. Just as an aside, it's true what you said about the obsolescence. We all know this. My 1980 Walkman from Sony still works. And things that I bought 5 years ago don't, and it was built differently as well, and cost is also different. You touched upon something, very important, which is, obviously I'm asking you to dream, because first we lay out a vision, and then we have to think about what stands in the way of us realizing it, right? So Ajay, you started going down that path, right? I mean, in terms of this visionary, highly automated, very seamless, process from creation of products to delivery, and everything automated, very predictable, and so forth. What are the other things that stand in the way from what you're talking about? Installed base, you and Ali mentioned as well. What else is sort of there that holds us back?
So I want to go back to the previous part, though.
Yeah.
So I think the one part what got missed out, and maybe I think, is the ability to manufacture any place, anywhere.
Nice.
Right. So
very nice point.
Really, I think the technology is there and has been now for a little bit. And I think now the one of the thought process anyway from again stepping away from AI was that if you can just have the manufactured capability of what you were trying to manufacture, and you have the manufacturing capabilities spread across, then you really don't need to spend so much on trying to distribute products, etc. But you could literally centralize and make the part, centralize the design of the part and make the part wherever it is required. We have one customer we're working with, a very large distribution company. What they have done is part of it, right? So they are a distribution company. So instead of having manufacturing wherever they do, they've literally built manufacturing 3D setups as part of their distribution center, from where they actually send the parts over. So there are companies who would, let's say company A trying to send their part to company B, this is B2B, they don't need to do that physically say, I made this part, now go over to the distribution center for you to distribute. You literally manufacture in the distribution and send it out. And I think the next advancement on that is it's going to be that distribution is just going to get closer and closer to where
the hyper-localization that you were also talking about, right? I mean, in a geopolitical sense, that might also be quite conducive, right? I mean, given what's happening, and or is that not?
What's happening?
I mean, yes, very, very. All right, yeah, good one. Paul, your dream too. I mean, you outlined it. What stands in the way? I mean, there's certain technical things, but a bunch of them seem organizational and otherwise in nature too, right? What holds us back, and where do you see it?
I think we have this, I would say, a flavor of the month. Right?
Yeah.
When we hold a hammer, everything becomes a nail.
Yeah.
And right now, AI, everything needs to become something that we fix with AI.
Yeah.
At the end, I need solutions.
Yeah.
And the people on the shop floor actually need solutions.
Yeah.
Solutions that they can deploy themselves.
Yeah.
I have no shortage of people that have great tools at the moment, and they're pitching the tools, and rightfully they have great algorithms, great engines, whatever else. But it takes the translation between the tool and actually something that I need to solve on the shop floor, a problem or a process that I'm changing to make something better, and that translation is missing. And we want to make these breakthroughs, but we only think until the tool, and on the other side we think until the solution, and we need to meet in the middle. And I see this as the big ask for large companies, but also small companies, to step in and make sure that we bridge between the people that are technically very smart and know how to do AI, and the people that actually have a need, and they need to meet in the middle. The guys that need the solution need to learn a little bit more about AI, and the other ones need to learn a little bit more about user interface and how to actually make it work on the shop floor.
I love that. I run, by the way, a dual degree engineering and business program. So it's sort of, how to bring these people together. But anyway, great stuff. We'll work on some more. You had mentioned, Ali, installed bases and other things that prevent you from realizing your dream, right? What else prevents you from realizing your dream?
So there's lots of talk about, AI is going to come in and take all the jobs away, right?
Yeah.
But it's pretty ironic because right now we have a huge talent shortage in manufacturing. The number of unfilled jobs we're expecting is substantial by 2030. So I think one of the big things is not only do we need to make manufacturing more exciting for this next generation and keep people in those jobs today, and really think about AI from being, human-centered. Like Rockwell's slogan is expanding human possibility.
Yeah.
Like we need to make manufacturing exciting. We need to fill these jobs. I'm really not concerned about AI taking the jobs or automation taking the jobs.
Yeah.
It's going to be about what are those new skill sets that we have to develop. And as you know, in this area, it's critical, right? Like everyone is going to become a prompt engineer. How we interact with the systems and the manufacturing floor, if it's on site or it's in your at home, in the office, wherever you are. I think that the skill shortage and the new skill sets that are emerging and those that we don't even know to exist yet is going to be really the big challenge. And again, we have the technology. We've been even think about AI. I think back to our R&D team. Like, gosh, 20 years ago we were doing things with autonomous agents on like the Navy ships and looking at how do we autonomously control the chillers and the boilers and the air compressors all at once. And it's interesting. I love this case study because they proved, they made a simulation of being able to optimize these various energy sources on the ship, right?
Yeah.
And what happened was they proved that it was working, but the operators themselves actually wouldn't adopt the changes. And actually the algorithm was developed based on ants.
Yeah.
And leveraging actually how ants operate, right?
Yeah.
But it's just interesting because even though we were showing that it was working, they were too scared to adopt it. And again, it goes also to that cultural, are they ready for it?
Yeah.
It will take some time, but I think as the new generation comes in, it's going to be a more of a mandatory, not a secondary.
Couple of points I love about what you said. Number one, all this stuff like AI or pretty much anything is usually decades old. It's just that it reaches a point where we can finally see a killer app or it becomes mainstream. That's when everybody goes crazy about it, right? And yes, there's some growth that's exponential associated with it, but that's number one, right? The other point that you're making, I like the positivity, right? It's hard for us. We often think about these technologies replacing people because that's easy to envision. I mean, we look at factories and how, automation has caused fewer people to work, but you don't think about the fact that we have many more products and services. And as a result, you have much more employment and economic growth that we've created over time, right? And it's just hard for us to envision. That's where the uncertainty also comes in that you were talking about. It's kind of hard for us to tell what products and services are coming and how these things will evolve, right? Really important points that you raise. Paul, are you equally bullish on, this? And of course, the third thing is the identification of the skills gap, right? And we need to have that talent. We actually need more people in this area and for them to be trained, right? And make it sexy for them so they also find it exciting. Broadcast this far and wide, it's sexy people.
We like
so
manufacturing.
That's what we need, right? Yeah, do it, right? Paul, how do you see this? I mean, this training of people, or how do you deal with this in your organization as well, right? Try and keep people upskilled. You talked about it earlier as well. And in the situation where maybe you need fewer people, what do you do with them?
So it's all about having an inclusive environment where people feel actually that they are part of the solution.
Yeah, nice.
And I want to correct myself because I said before, guys, for sure, it's guys and girls, right? So we proud ourselves to have an inclusive environment.
Yes.
There's many
like that.
Male and female colleagues on the shop floor, right?
Yeah.
But making them feel part of what we do, part of the journey, right? So we actually did something that we called social impact of automation, and that goes with AI as well.
Yeah.
So we show people what's happening to their workplace, right? What's happening to their daily routine. And we show them that a manual line actually needs 20 people. And when we automate, it's going to be 10 people, but they're going to have way more interesting workplaces. So they're going to run the machine instead of doing some manual assembly, or they will use an AI solution for visual inspection instead of doing that on the shop floor themselves, right? And also what's happening to the people that will move then to other customers or other accounts. Yeah? And in that way, you take the hearts and the minds of the people on the shop floor too. I do not like solutions that come from corporate, where we invent something and then we try to do things better and we lose the long experience of people on the shop floor that actually know the product inside out, right? When you get all of that into the project and into the solution building, then first of all, you have a way better outcome because in an inclusive environment, you get way better ideas. Yes. And second, you also have a way better work environment and engagement of the folks on the floor.
Love it. Ajay, from your client point of view, are you seeing, how are you seeing and how do you advise firms to deal with, this talent and handling people and making these transitions and all of these issues? And are there some best practices you observe?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from a change management perspective, it's all about feeling motivated about what you do.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that, your job a lot of times becomes easier and different because of the robots. Right? For example, there is this company I was talking with yesterday that actually creates robots that will move around a warehouse that can carry or load up to 100 kilograms. That's a lot of weight. And to be able to handle that successfully, which traditionally could have required humans to operate machines, etc., forklifts, etc., could actually hurt people as well. Everybody knows about warehouse accidents that happen by the dozen, and in spite of all the safety and precautions, I think it's some ways this helps in bringing better health and safety standards as well, and improves everybody's lives. And so there is definitely a big upside to the way AI or conventional automation technologies can bring life a lot better for the worker, and if we focus on that, the entire change management around this can be much, much better. But I actually want to be a little provocative as well.
Please.
Which is, we are in Davos, right?
Yeah.
Literally every second company in Davos, and second session in Davos like this one, has had speakers who've said that AI has already crossed that cusp of exponential.
Yeah.
And the kind of change that you will see on month by month, day by day basis, not years, is going to be exponential, which basically means there will be newer ways of working, newer technologies, and forced obsolescence of people, not of products. Literally because there will be better ways of doing it. They will have automated not only what are repeatable tasks, but they would have automated the thinking as well. And if that is the way to go, then what happens to the jobs that we're talking about? I don't necessarily agree with the point of view. I want to also say that, but I want to just talk about that.
Let's get these views, right? I mean, I think that's a really important question, right? And part of it depends on your actual opinion on where we are and, whether that's exaggerated or not, right? Yeah. But part of it's also, about what we're seeing in real. Are you seeing, what are you seeing in terms of the actual adoption of AI and what it can do and where the weaknesses are? Are you seeing and envisioning in the near future a world of that sort?
Yeah, we are very much at the beginning of this journey, right?
Yeah.
I think there's so much to be done just from a foundational layer, and you think back even just how old is the planet Earth, right? Like we are just a little tiny tiny speck. But I someone made an analogy yesterday that I love from I don't even like sports too much, but baseball innings, right? And you have 9 innings. We're maybe in inning 1 of the AI journey out of the 9, and baseball games are long, in my opinion. So I think we have quite a bit of time, but it's going to move in a pace that is going to be, I think, unfathomable and something that we're not even used to, right? Just think about how fast we've seen like ChatGPT.
And are you preparing for that rapid advancement at any point in time, or are you just sort of saying we'll wait and watch?
Oh no! Come on, I'm in the CTO's organization for AI, so no, we're ready, right? I think we're embedding AI across our portfolio. We're looking at what's
She's
next.
ready.
We're ready. They're totally ready. And I loved also you bringing up like the autonomous mobile robots, AMRs. I think that's another great example.
Yeah.
Like just thinking about like we just recently added that to our portfolio, and these AMRs like they have the ability to. I mean, I know this is probably not that exponential, but they have the AI built into them where they're going to learn a path, and they're going to learn that path by themselves, and they're going to identify obstacles, but then they're going to realize from that path that they could actually go the other path, and it's going to optimize it and change that route, just like, even Waze, but it's happening real time. And I think things like that are maybe little, but they're not. They're big for these big manufacturing facilities and change happening.
If you think about how normal job looked like 20 years ago in the electronic industry and how it looks today, I'm very excited that this journey will continue. The jobs will become more technical. We have way more people with technical degrees, and we actually provide the training, and we work closely with universities that actually teach at our campuses as well for those technical degrees. I'm confident in 10 years there will be very little manual work, very little manual inspection, if none, right? And everybody that will be on the shop floor will be a technician or an engineer that will actually run a high complex system. And that makes those jobs really interesting.
That's super interesting, right? I mean, it's really about upskilling for all of us, right? And I think the tools make it easier because even to program or to code, these days you don't actually need the same level of, background in it. You don't actually, honestly, have to be a computer science engineer to do really good coding anymore. And that's good news because that democratization enables that upskilling. It's not something that we should be afraid of. A couple of things, though, on that front, which is sort of which is intriguing me. How do you keep up with the latest technology and with the changes, right? Because, we can have organic ways of doing it where I try and do everything myself. I can have partnerships, I can have acquisitions, there are different ways of dealing with it, especially when there's a lot of uncertainty and I don't know where things are headed. Are you working with startups? Are you partnering with them? Are you buying firms? How do you stay on top of these technologies? So Paul, start with you, and then I'll go to the other flanks. Yeah.
It's important that you have a good mix, right? Strong partners like Rockwell, right? And you need to work with the newest technologies from startups too. At the end, all of that needs to come together to bring something that actually provides a meaningful change on the shop floor. And that's where the strong partners are actually really good because we do this journey together. And we have some partners that we work since 25 years together and continuously challenge them on the way that things are produced because we get challenged by our customers with more exciting and more difficult to manufacture products, right? The designs are getting pretty tough. The design cycles are getting shorter and shorter. And that's why I'm also not pessimistic about employment in the electronic industry because what we've learned so far over the last 20 years, every time there was a little bit of capacity available, someone jumped in and came up with a much more difficult to assemble or test or design device that actually provided great capabilities for the consumer. And I'm sure that will continue if I see what's happening right now in AI, how much AI hardware is produced, how much opportunity there is to reduce the energy consumption of AI hardware, and many other areas as well. I'm certain this industry will play a very important part in this transformation of the world, right? And in that way as well, we're going to continue to provide really exciting opportunities for our people.
Listen, I mean, this resonates because can you imagine semiconductors being hot again? I mean, the most commoditized industry, right? And now people are running around paying $40,000 for a GPU, which has to be disrupted for us to and all these things. So fabulous stuff, right? From your point of view.
Well, I think how do we keep up on the latest technology or understanding that multiple dimensions? Personally, thinking about AI, these market intelligence platforms, being fed the right news articles, and I don't have to go see them all, and it's learning my behaviors.
Nice.
That's golden. Like I can get through a lot of articles pretty fast. But I think from the manufacturing side, data is currency, right? There's so many technologies that are coming, but everyone has this mass amount of data that they're collecting and they're designing. And if we can tap into that and share data asset models or whatever it might be, I think that's going to be how we learn the fastest.
What I love about this is the collaboration idea, not just because it's a theme of Davos, but this is all ecosystem play. This is all, everything we're talking about depends on multiple partners. So everybody has to align, right? Ajay, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually just want to go back to the previous question because I think organizations, I think are just not there yet. To basically understand the impact of AI on their environment, which basically necessitates better understanding of the partners, the ecosystems, the technologies, etc. And because that can vary depending on a conservative person who might say 5 or 10% to another person on a AI. If somebody from OpenAI was here, for example, we heard one yesterday, right? Talking about 30 to 40% in a matter of quarters. Those are far apart. And if you are a CEO, you're a president, and you are being thrown all of these numbers, and it's not a debate, right? You can, the way you can give an opinion and then go home. There is a lot of challenge in trying to really understand and appreciate what really has to be done. And to adopt to that change, I don't think organizations are ready, which basically means if you are the CFO, what do? You really have to balance opportunity, look at very clear ROIs. You really need to make sure the IRR and is very well packaged. you really need to understand your competition extremely well, because they may come from startups, they may come from existing ones, different investments, etc. Because you have to stay differentiated and ahead of your competition as well.
Yeah.
So you may decide 10% is good enough. I'm sorry, but what if your competition is able to deliver 20?
Yeah.
And because of these technologies, then are you going to be not pushed to deliver 20 as well? And then are you ready?
Yeah.
Or if you planned for 10 and the industry pivots to 5, great, man, you manage to get 10 at that point of time. You're way ahead of everybody else. You basically have to then plan for scale and growth.
This is really important because, to underscore this point, I mean, we're talking about large capital investments over long periods of time, right? And then to make those commitments is not quite easy. I mean, in one way, dealing with the entire ecosystem and the partners allows you to distribute and some of that risk in the investment, right? But it could happen at any point in time, right? All right, let's open it up to some folks in the room. I hope you've been inspired by some of these really interesting thoughts about both what's possible, but also some of the realities and how we can tackle it, which we got from our panelists. Let's get the questions. We have questions, but it's great to hear from you. Yes?
Yeah, going back to your introduction just going back to your introduction with a little comment and then my question.
Yes.
About what's the dream? I do believe in AI. The largest lack of talent that we have when it comes to manufacturing are effectively dreamers.
Yeah.
My dream with my reduced, less skilled workforce is having them using AI without being conscious of it.
Yeah.
I had not to have a training, an enablement, a data scientist for my grandmother that is 94 years old to use an iPhone.
Yeah.
None of us had a training to use this. What if none of us had to have the training to become a Facharbeiter or a worker in manufacturing? That would be a dream. So I think the biggest hurdle for me consciously in manufacturing of AI is the name of AI, because it's artificial. And manufacturing being quite conservative because of the capex delays and all the time needed for change, I see manufacturers still having the bias, not trusting AI. Mm-hmm. So if I found a way to have them using it without knowing it, then I will not grow because I'm a dreamer. I will think exponential.
Let's get your reactions to this, both Ali as well as Paul, and of course Ajay as well, because it ties with what you were saying too. What if we are pushed by a shock to the system where somebody comes in and suddenly does things 30% more efficiently, 40% more efficiently, whether in terms of cost or in terms of effort or something like that, you have to react to it, right? I mean, and this more subtle way of doing these things to enact it because you're implying that mindset is really the problem, right? What do you guys think?
So if you talk about implementing something on the shop floor, it requires a little bit of, how shall I say, stability in many cases, right? When we get a new product from the customer, it can take off or it may not take off, right? Sometimes it's 10x of what we think, and sometimes it's a fraction of what we think.
Yeah.
So you want flexibility. And here AI plays a great role because, especially with the large language models, you have solutions finally that are flexible, that you can scale pretty simple and use it. Comes intuitively for users as well. So we see a huge uptick on the shop floor from people as soon as we provide them the solution and we enable them. So we've put the LLM that is basically customized for our system in place that people can use. And as you said, right, it's like using a phone. People don't think about it too much. Yeah? You can ask a question, and in the past, when you asked the wrong question in a big analytics project, it took maybe weeks. You got the answer, you figured out that's not exactly what I wanted to know, or I asked the wrong question, and you started from scratch again.
Yeah.
LLM, it's perfect, right? You can ask the next question a couple of seconds ago, and so on. So it becomes a way faster project. From that perspective, I agree with you. I think on these 5 whys that we all need on the shop floor, it's probably not 40% faster, it's 1,000% faster, right?
Yeah.
Than what we've seen before. And with that, that there's going to be a revolution in certain parts. Now, for the overall system, that's why I've been talking about 10%, what's going to be the impact? If I can solve my issues faster, for example, on a ramp-up on a line, I may have a 10, 20, 40, 50% impact. Even if I run the new line at 50% faster, I still have a couple of old lines that I need to upgrade as well, and that's going to take a little bit of time.
So that's more of a cost problem, though, as opposed to anything else?
It's how much you can do at the same time with the number of people that you have. Right?
Okay, so that's rate limiting.
You still need to provide output, right? At the end, you're producing physical product, and how much time can I spend on improvement? If I can put 10 or 20 or 50% time of improvement, I can accelerate, but I still need to fulfill customer demand. And customer demand in certain areas is really high at the moment. So it comes to the old problem, right? How much time can I improve while I'm actually doing the stuff that I need to deliver every day?
Exploration versus exploitation. Yeah, go ahead.
I heard Brad Smith from Microsoft say this yesterday, and I love that idea that you were mentioning in the audience around, like, let's make it so we don't know AI's there. And he used this analogy of, you go to the grocery store and you go to buy milk, and when you go to buy milk, are you ever questioning like that it's not safe? Because we think about all of the certifications and the regulations that go around that, and the context here was around more of the AI regulations and more misinformation. But the thought of like, no, you're not. When you go to buy milk, you're not questioning that it's not going to be safe for you. And I think to the point of when you go on your manufacturing floor and you're leveraging, you're interacting. AI will just be there, and it just will be there. And I think I kind of like that analogy of I'm going to go buy milk, and I'm not going to assume that the milk is going to poison me because the regulations and the systems are in place, that it's tested, and it's part of what happens.
Yeah, taken for granted almost, right? Yeah.
I disagree on that point a little bit, and I'm sorry for that.
Nice. But, no, thank you. Good for this.
But really, I think the reason for that disagreement is how AI works.
Yeah.
Right? The AI works by learning itself, and there are two paths to that learning. One, which is repeatable process that has been now validated and confirmed.
Yeah.
And then there is part of the learning where it is innovative, like HCLTech, which has not been done, confirmed yet.
Yeah.
But it still found the best part there. Now, for example, I'm going to take the example of healthcare because it, again, I think brings a different level of seriousness than using a device. It doesn't matter. So there are, for example, if you are in a pharmaceutical company, you've already come back with, or you're trying to solve a certain disease.
Yeah.
And you've figured out, hey, this is an antibiotic resistant version of something. And to basically handle that, you have to create a medicine that has these variables, and this is how you create it. Now, AI says that is ready. If you want to believe it, you can take it. Do you really want to try it at that point of time? You don't. You say, okay, forget it, right? Let's go through health trials. We have a vaccine. It's going to take us a year of testing, and we brought 10 years down to 1 year when COVID happened. Great. But we still did that testing before we actually started using it, mass production, etc. There, we at least knew what process was being adopted.
Yeah.
In the case of AI, the learning is happening through proof points that AI is generating for its own good. So there has to be a process of checks and quality to say that AI is delivering the right output for you whenever you're talking of something complex and serious. Some of those will be easily validated.
Yeah.
Because it's, another analogy people give is, in a brain, there's the cortex and then there is the cerebellum part.
Yeah.
The cerebellum part's reacting. You push it here, it's basically it's automatic reaction. To your baseball analogy, that's how we're playing baseball.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to use the part of the brain which is thinking, and that also goes into AI for you, you want to be a little more careful as to what you're doing and whether it actually will deliver the right kind of results.
I think he's totally not contradicting, actually.
Yeah.
I want to jump in on that because
good.
It doesn't really mean, right, that AI produces more failures than humans, right? AI is hallucinating, but at the same time, people also meet
humans also hallucinate.
Yes. We are very hard on self-driving cars, but if you look at human drivers, we also cause some issues, right?
Yeah.
I think it's more the balance between what's speed versus quality.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it really well. During COVID, we developed things in the medical industry at record speed, at the cost of the quality checks that we normally run over a long period of time. But it was very important to have something really fast. If we have a little bit more time, we can take the time, to implement all the quality checks. Yeah, and it's the same thing on the shop floor. In many cases, I think the AI solutions will provide better quality, even faster, right? So that's going to be the breakthrough. And at some point, we'll feel comfortable to cut out the human quality inspector or whatever else.
Yeah.
And if we are really under time pressure, we'll probably trust AI right away.
Yes. See, we forgive the human for making mistakes. We don't forgive the machine.
Making mistakes is human, right?
Yeah.
It's not AI.
It's not machine. Machine should be perfect, right? Yeah. You were going to react as well, right, Ali?
I just agree, right? I think we have to have those checks and balances with AI, and that's how I feel like about when I go and buy my milk. Like I'm assuming it's happening, and we think about that design, operate, control, maintain realm of the manufacturing life cycle, and but like, for example, we're working with a large solar manufacturer right now, and we're really bringing together the digital and the physical. So we've created this beautiful digital twin of their manufacturing process, and things are running in real time. But in parallel to that, we still have this real time digital twin happening. And what we're doing is we are saying, oh, this is actually by applying AI with the digital twin. We're saying, oh, actually, we're going to modify this, and we do trust it. Push that new algorithm that we've learned based on this real-time data that's feeding the digital twin, and push it in right now.
Yeah.
And it's working, right? Like these are things that I think that digital twin it also provides one way of a means of the checks and balances.
Perfect. Great examples. Another question.
Hi, I'm based here in Switzerland, and we invest in companies and scale them in industrial technology for lights out warehouses and factories. And on the other hand, we've done a lot of technology partnerships between Europe and Asia for moving manufacturing there as well. Going back to Paul had made a comment that you're looking at a manufacturing setup or a shop floor setup which is largely automated. 10 years down the line, do you see that there is a possibility for manufacturing coming back? Or how is the relative competitiveness of Asian manufacturing going to be affected by AI and automation? Especially given we live in a Trumpian world as well.
Great question.
Yeah. So for sure we'll see more manufacturing regional, right? The whole political trend is going into that way. But also from a sustainability perspective, we need to do more local, and it's going to provide faster service to the consumer as well. So we operate in 30 countries. We actually have a lot of European locations for good reasons. And with AI and automation, those locations become more and more competitive again. And you see actually that trend happening in many other industries as well. And companies like you're investing in are enabling that. So I'm very confident that we'll see that trend continue over the next 10 years. And I would love to see local manufacturing for the local markets thrive based on AI solutions and automation solutions and warehousing solutions, because all the repetitive stuff that requires a lot of people is tough to do in Europe, right? Because we don't have the demographics to do it. But we definitely have people that are interested to work in smart manufacturing shops and work on technology or engineering issues that actually make every day working and improving a little bit a fun job.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just to provide some context, I was in a session this morning with the Chief Product Officer of OpenAI, and he mentioned something, and I'm going to summarize this. He said between ChatGPT 3.0 and ChatGPT 4.01, in the open market where they test the intelligence of the LLMs, the rank of this software engineer, of their automated software engineer, has gone from 1 millionth to 175 in a span of a year and a half. So my question to you guys, including yourself, because you're teaching at a university, is about how are you keeping students and workers up to date in such a fast-paced, innovative environment in an industry like manufacturing where innovation takes time to adapt? That's the reality, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, from a thought leadership perspective, how do you keep students and workers up to date? And the question is more around human centricity, right? How are we keeping them interested, involved at this pace?
Each of you, and then I'll give a comment.
So my comment, when I said I was disagreeing, was actually to that pace that we were just talking about. I disagree that pace can get into manufacturing and these kind of industries at the pace OpenAI expects them to. I mean, I know that's also provocative to say no to what they're saying, because they are right. The world is changing, and their ChatGPT products working much faster. But some of the reasons and things that we discussed are the reasons why that speed of innovation cannot be adopted for manufacturing and be successful overnight. There has to be logical checks and balances and stuff. There has to be, you talked about digital twin. Digital twin is a great way of actually testing out equipment, etc., and retesting it and testing the process so that you're creating a good product out of it. Those are technologies that we have to use, which are precursor to basically saying, hey, there is a 10x change that's already happened, and what happens to all the jobs? Now, the productivity of an individual will definitely go up manifold. Labor intensity of manufacturing will go down dramatically. Knowledge workers in manufacturing will increase because you will need to have an understanding of AI and its components and impact and all that stuff to be an expert in what you're trying to do rather than a generalist. So you have to be thinking about specializations. And I know it's your question to come back to. If you are an educator, those are the skills that you should be looking at that have to be inculcated in the students that actually helps them get to be more productive in the area that they're specializing in, quicker and faster rather than providing and giving them subject knowledge of 50 different subjects that didn't matter anymore.
Ali, your thoughts?
Well,
keeping people, your talent up to date, all that stuff, educating
it's going to be really challenging. I think it's how do we keep them excited about the industry in itself? And we heard last night at the evening event here, adaptability and soft skills are going to be equally as important. So keeping them, curious, and they're going to bring new ideas, and they're going to help us innovate. And I think just helping excite them will be key for us. And collaboration with the universities is also big.
Wonderful. Paul, anything from your side or things that you're practicing?
You were talking about software engineers, right? I learned assembler when I was in school, right? And no one is doing assembler anymore, very few people, right? And even C and C++ and so on, very few people do that. So now I think big part of coding will go away and will be put into the machine, into AI, and people will focus on other things that are necessary in the solution development cycle. So I'm actually excited about it as well, right? Because we can take a lot of smart brains that are right now coding, which is sometimes also boring, and actually use all of the talent for something new. And hopefully all of the solutions will be for manufacturing, because I need many solutions. I'm looking forward to that.
I love it. I mean, I have to comment on it just coming from the education space. I think for us, we never really think about it as teaching any particular subject matter, right? It's all about, analytical ways of thinking. But these days, all of us have to learn all the time. So like you said, whether it's a language or a particular know-how, we just have to keep adapting. What a wonderful note to bring this panel to a close. Before I thank the panelists, I think a scintillating discussion. I learned so much. First of all, I'm enthused about the possibilities, right? And we may not agree on the rates. I do understand the limitations. As much as we all provoke by saying Silicon Valley, rates are so-and-so for innovation and disruption, when you've got capital intensity and you need reliability and you can't just throw beta versions out there which have flaws and fix it with a patch, it's not the same, right? It's just not the same. At the same time, all these tools that we have at our disposal will dramatically change what we do and will enable many possibilities. The mere fact that we can, bring back manufacturing and localize and make it sustainable is a huge asset, in addition to the numbers that we have, and it might be a cumulative effect over time. In addition, though, I think what's fascinating to me is that yes, there's the ROI question because it's capital intensive. Yes, there are the technological challenges, but it boils down to the people in the end and handling that talent. Even in an industry or in a setting where we think it's sort of the, manufacturing, it's like, operations, it's the hard assets at work, but it boils down to the people. And I think that's our biggest challenge at hand, but also our biggest opportunity. I'm left with just saying thank you so much for giving us all these inspirational insights and food for thought. Of course, we'll have lunch after this.